Hi everyone, it's Tricia White here with the Sterling Heights Public Library, your teen librarian, and I'm so excited to be back again today to host another episode of YA Insider. In honor of summer reading starting this month, I thought today would be a great day to tie in with the theme which this year is Imagine Your Story. So today for YA Insider, I have three great fantasy stories that will hopefully pique your imagination. So the first book I wanted to talk to you guys about today is called Fireborn by Rosaria Munda. So this is a brand new fantasy just from this past year, and it's so great. As you can tell from the title, it has fire in it, so it's about dragons. It's kind of like a teenage version of Game of Thrones. There's this old society in which dragon riders are the ruling class, the Dragonborn. And the Dragonborn was only made up of a few different families, and each family was tied to different dragons. And historically, they persecuted the classes beneath them and abused their powers in a way that led to a revolution in which the Dragonborn were entirely, or so they think, the Dragonborn are entirely slaughtered, and a new government that is supposed to be more for the people takes its place. This book follows the story of two teenagers, Annie and Lee, who are best friends. They grew up in an orphanage together following the revolution. And even though they grew up in the orphanage together, their backgrounds could not be more different. Annie is lowborn, while Lee is, without her knowledge, he is the last remaining Dragonborn within the city. So he has to kind of hide this part of himself from her and from everybody else around him for fear that he will be killed. But they're both in this academy. They've both been chosen by dragons because in this new society that they've developed, anybody can be a dragon rider. They just have to have a dragon that chooses them. And so both of them get matched with dragons, and they kind of become these rising stars within the organization and are kind of fighting for the top spot to be captain of the dragon riders, which becomes more complicated as things go on, and it becomes clear that Lee's family isn't gone as he thought, so they come back and he kind of has some choices he has to make. It's just such a great story. I couldn't put it down when I read it, and like I said, if you like Game of Thrones, this is the book for you. It's such a great read, and it really gets into the nitty-gritty of class structures and the disparity between the classes and what gives a person the right to rule. So it's just an excellent fantasy, and I couldn't recommend it more highly. The next title I want to talk to you guys about is called The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. So Holly Black is a really prolific YA fantasy author. She's written a ton of titles, and this particular one has to do with fairies, which is a very popular topic within YA. So this is the story of a girl named Jude who is taken to the realm of the fairies, or in this book it's called Elfheim, when she's 7 years old, along with her twin sister Taryn and their sister Vivi, who is half fairy, half human. She finds out that her mother was married to a fairy before she was married to her own father, and he was very upset that she left him, so he comes and murders Jude's parents and takes the children back to the fairy realm with him. So even though she is human, she is mostly raised in fairy. 10 years past, she's kind of fallen in love with this fairy world and really, really wants to be accepted by those around her. And despite everything, has a very close relationship with her adopted father, Maddox, who is the person who killed her parents, and is really desperate for his approval. She wants to fight and compete in a tournament, but he is not allowing her to. And she really is just trying to find her place, because the only way that they can remain in fairy once they become adults is if they either marry a fairy themselves or if they have a skill that the fairies can use. So she's trying to prove to him and to the other people in her life that she's useful to them. So she ends up getting really deeply into some dark, dark things. She becomes a spy in the Court of Shadows for Prince Dane, who is one of the heirs to the throne, and ends up doing some not so great things for him in order to prove her loyalty and try to make herself as useful as possible. In return for her service, Prince Dane gives her protection from all fairy enchantments other than those that are his own. So in that way, he's protecting her from all the other fairies in her life who have tried to mistreat her or charm her into doing something that she doesn't want to do, especially Prince Dane's younger brother, Prince Carden, who is her biggest bully in her life and is constantly torturing her through his wicked acts, his cruel acts. So she really is in need of that protection from him. In the end, despite how much she has changed throughout the course of the novel, Jude is able, through her journey, to find her worth in the land of the fairies and to prove it to those around her. And she ends up having to do so by making a semi-unwanted pact with Prince Carden, who becomes her ally in trying to safeguard the throne. And it really is a very interesting story. It's a darker fantasy, obviously, but I think fairies are super interesting, and I think this is a really well done depiction of the fairy world, which is historically is a very dark world. And it's so just, I think it's a great take to have a human perspective in the land of fairies. So I really recommend it, and I hope you enjoy. The last book I wanted to talk to you about today is called Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. So this is a very original story. It is about an island called the Island of Fireborn, and every generation there's three triplet queens that are born. And so these queens are separated at birth and sent to different parts of the island according to what powers they have. One queen has a poisoner power, one queen has an elemental power, so she can control the elements, and the last queen is a naturalist, so she can control different animals and nature around her. So the three sisters are called Katarine. She is the poisoner sister, the poisoner queen. And then there's Mirabella, and she's the elemental queen. And there's Arsinoe, and she's the naturalist queen. So they obviously have not been together since they were children. They know nothing about each other. And at 16, they are expected to all meet again for the first time. And one of them is going to be crowned queen, while the other two will have to die at the hands of the Lane Queen. So again, it's a darker story, but it is a great fantasy. The magic that is within it is just so interesting. And the sisters themselves have all such distinct personalities, and you want to root for each of them in different ways. Until the very end. So with these three sisters, they have varying degrees of power when it comes to their particular powers. So Mirabella is a very strong elemental, and everyone in the island thinks that she's going to be the one that is crowned the queen crowned. And the other two queens, Arsinoe is very weak in her power. She doesn't have a familiar yet, where most naturalists at her age have one. Although she is very talented with low magic, but that is kind of frowned upon in their society. And Katarine is a very weak poisoner. While she doesn't have a problem concocting poisons and giving them to other people, she gets very sick when she ingests poisons, which is not supposed to happen to a poisoner. A poisoner is supposed to be immune to any poison. So they both are kind of weaker and looked down upon because of that. And Mirabella is just assumed to be the queen crowned. But that is not as simple as it seems. So many different things happen in the course of the novel. Mirabella really doesn't want to kill her sisters, and she tries to flee in order to escape that fate. And Arsinoe tries to rely on low magic to bind herself to an animal in order to appear like she has a familiar, which that also goes a little awry as well. And all the while, they are also being presented with suitors and having to try to figure out the politics of ruling this island. In addition to the three queen sisters, there's also another strong female character. Her name is Jules. She is Arsenault's best friend, and she is a really strong naturalist. She has a mountain cat familiar named Camden, and she's the strongest naturalist that has been seen in generations. And she's also trying to help Arsenault succeed and win and become the queen crowned. And she's also has another significant part to play within the story as well. So again, this is a really great story with very, very strong women central in the book. And they all have such unique powers, and it is a very exciting and thrilling read. And I really, really highly recommend it. Thank you so much for tuning in today to watch YA Insider with me. And I just want to remind everyone that all of these great fantasy titles that I talked about today are available both in audiobook and ebook formats through Libby or OverDrive. I really hope you check them out, and I'll see you next time on YA Insider. Bye.